Welcome to this episode of the Customer Centric Retailing Podcast. This is Anil Patel, founder and CEO of Cotopaxi Commerce. In this podcast, we discuss e-commerce, omnichannel technology, pre-order management, brick and mortar operations, retail culture, innovation, and how all these elements come together to create customer-centric retailing. Join us to hear the brightest minds in the retail industry share their experiences and thoughts on the most relevant topics today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Customer Centric Retailing Podcast. Today we have with us Stephan Jacob. Uh, definitely. This is something I always get tricky, but maybe in America we should start saying Jacob now. So we have Stephan Jacob now with us, and very special. I'm really interested to talk to him, especially because of his technology background and being co-founder at Cotopaxi. Welcome, Stephan. How are you today?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for having me. Excited for this conversation.
Awesome, and really good. This is always a important question for me. I'm really interested in your journey. Want to know like how you got started, how you got into this idea of working on this company. Really fun company. I've been your customer. I visited your stores. I really love it. So, how did you get into this? So, starting from where you started, got into Cotopaxi and your journey since starting this company. I'm sure there are a lot of challenges and fun moments.
For sure. Yeah. No, thank you. I'll give the brief sort of backstory. I'm from Germany originally, so your pronunciation was actually spot on. Jakob. That's how you would say my last name in German. So well done. Grew up in Germany. Was in the German military, German Special Forces, and then went to college in Germany with a technology degree, information systems, um, and economics. And for some reason, was dead set on becoming a consultant. So I joined McKinsey for several years, working out of their Frankfurt office, both on technology and strategy type projects. Took some time off to work for a nonprofit organization. When I met my wife, she's half Indonesian. So worked for a nonprofit organization in Jakarta that was dedicated to the elimination of child labor on the Indonesian archipelago, and that was a really formative experience that radiates to this day, right? With how we think at Cotopaxi about building a brand around people, around doing good. Um, just recognizing that I'd been lucky, right? Having been born in Western Europe, I didn't have to worry about food and shelter and healthcare and professional opportunities. It was just handed to me, right, by the sheer dumb luck of where I was born, and that's not the reality for a lot of people on this planet. And so that's sort of at the very core of when my co-founder Davis and I started Cotopaxi. He had similar experiences in South America, growing up. That Look, the opportunities are not distributed equal, and yet talent is, and love is, and ambition is. And so that's behind the brand, right? To find ways to support communities that have all this amazing talent but may not have the opportunity yet, right? And to work with in-country partners, and that's what we do through our foundation, and what we're so excited about, right, to this day, that Cotopaxi has stayed very true to that. So yeah, that was sort of the arc, right? McKinsey, I took stepped away from that to go to grad school. That's where in the U.S. That's how I ended up here in the U.S. Went to Wharton, did a dual degree, Wharton MBA, and a master in international studies with a focus on Latin America. That's where I met Davis. We both went off, raised venture money during our grad school years, and didn't spend a minute on recruiting. Launched these businesses, exited around the same time in 2013, and then we teamed up to start Cotopaxi. So that's the quick arch.
Now, this is really interesting. In fact, I love this idea like human centric brand because, very often we come across all these companies that launch products and it's all about making money, and we figure out the product, the ingredients they use, or the supply, or how they manufacture, and all that. It's like, sheer interest is in making profit. and they have always have an excuse that our goal is to make money for our shareholders. Well, who's going to take the responsibilities towards society and towards the whole thing? So whenever I get chance to talk to people like you, I'm really excited. I get goosebumps because this is really what we should be like. Human beings supposed to take care of each other.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's important is there's nothing wrong with making money. We're profit driven, right? That's what, the organization I was working for in Indonesia, they were not. It was a nonprofit, right? They relied 100% on grants from UNICEF and from the ILO, and it wasn't sustainable, right? The moment those funds dried up, the whole infrastructure collapsed, right? Because it wasn't self-funded. And so that's the whole notion around being a profit-driven organization, right? That at scale, we're independent from outside capital, and we can fund our impact efforts ourselves through our profits. And again, this is hotly debated, more so here in the U.S. than in other places, right? Whether the whole topic around ESG and should businesses care about anything other than profits, right? Chicago School of Thought, traditional, like purist of capitalist approach, the answer is no, right? The purpose of a business is to make money. You distribute these profits to the shareholders, and then the shareholders can decide, to do good with those proceeds. The problem with that approach is that that often doesn't happen, right? Human nature, and so I think that's where we say there is a better way, right? We pursue profits. We're very focused on operating efficiently, and at the same time, we try to minimize the negative externalities of how we operate and maximize the positive contributions that we can have along our supply chain with our own people internally and with sort of the larger community, right, of customers, of brands, suppliers, etc.
Yeah, in fact, we definitely need to make profit to run the business for sure. At the same time, like, you cannot, it's kind of like being hypocritic. Like, if you go how you want to be treated, how what you say is right and wrong, then you are being idealistic and you present all your high level thoughts. But then when you go sourcing, you don't care how your suppliers are operating. But then you are giving them business. By that giving them business, you're supporting the whole idea of all that bad work environment, child labor, and like and pollution. Like a lot of those manufacturing, when it moved from US to Asia, a lot of it was like pollution was moved from US to these countries. Now, this is not being aware and being active to protect your environment, because the earth is not like Asia is not on other planet, it's on earth. So it's not that you can so that's where I really I like when companies like yours come in and we talk to you and all that. So we really this is where it's important that if what if all these bigger companies who are so much after making profits for their shareholders, that they actually clearly ignore the what is happening down in their stream, where their suppliers, what they are doing, and the pollution and all that. So yeah, that's important. So thanks for actually being for your contribution. It's like it's very important for us because we are consumers, and it's good to know that whatever products the products we buy from a company like yours are actually sourced responsibly and are creating positive impact. So thanks for that for sure. Yeah.
For sure, and we're not the only ones. Look, there are many amazing organizations, right, that are embracing the notion of operating truly sustainably, right, from an environmental and a social perspective. And so there is a movement, right, that is happening, and we're really proud to be a part of it.
Right, right, right. In fact, a lot of times when we see all these people who are doing wrong, and you feel that, oh man, sad that Earth, where are people going? But then, we know that still we all are having comfortable life. Everything is going well. Means there are enough good people out there who are doing good things. That's why actually, we still see enough right things being done. So for sure, yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, also, this other thing, like you said about your background, you have technology background. Generally happens that when people who come from technology background, if they go start their own business, they generally would start a software company technology company and build that. In this case, I see totally different. You are a tech person, also own the technology of the company, responsibility to run the technology, build the technology. At the same time, you are actually into the consumer product, fashion, apparel, and outdoor living and all that. So help me get this idea, like how did you pick up this different nature of business for your entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love technology as a consumer, right? Always have, always drawn to, what's new, and the different waves of technological advancements. To remember, in the early days of personal computing, when my dad, he was also a technologist for a large insurance company in Germany, brought the first Atari home, and just spending hours with that thing. And so that's always been a part of me, and then obviously chose that as a path throughout my graduate and undergrad education. Um, and so at the same time, Cotopaxi is not a technology company, right? We're a product brand, and with a deep humanitarian social focus. We firmly believe that there's power in technology, especially given consumer expectations these days, right? True, like, omni-channel experiences are facilitated through technology. And I think, there's been tremendous advancement. If you look at what it took 20, 30 years ago to build a brand and to launch a brand, it required significant capital. It still does, right, with regard to inventory and with regard to, marketing and getting the word out. But the technology component actually is, the costs have come down drastically, right? And so, but you still need to, you can do it the right way, or the wrong way. And so for us, we believe in technology. We're technology forward. The outdoor industry as a whole, not necessarily, right? I think it is not a doesn't typically lead the charge in the consumer landscape, right, with regard to technology, embracing and adopting technology. It's a little bit slower, and we saw that as an opportunity, right, to build a digitally native brand um, in a sea of amazing brands that were built around traditional wholesale distribution, right, to start out with a direct to consumer approach, and then over time add wholesale, physical retail, and support that sort of omni-channel approach through strong SaaS-based, cloud-based technology, um, with a very like modularized sort of headless approach. And so that's been the journey, right? That we say, look, we need to understand, or there's an opportunity for us to differentiate as a brand by embracing technology early and fast and experimenting with it to create amazing customer experiences. Um, and these experiences need to be integrated closely into the overarching sort of like brand approach in sort of how we tell our stories, how we showcase our products. It's not technology for technology's sake. It needs to be tightly integrated. And so I think that lends itself to somebody who brings the technology experience and sort of passion with a little bit more strategic, cross-functional mindset, right? And so hence why one of the founders is still driving technology at Cotopaxi.
Yeah, this is true. In fact, in this sense, I would say that Cotopaxi has an unfair advantage in the market because Cotopaxi has one of the co-founders who understands technology so well. But otherwise, like in the retail space, we always see this as a challenge that because like their focus is on the product, so their products, they have all the expertise, all the creativity on those products, but when it comes to technology, they are like dependent on consultants and all these outsource agencies. Now those companies, they don't know your product so well, they don't know how the company should operate, strategy and all that. They're only trying to guess. And even if everybody works honestly, still there's enough mismatch that between both, that there will be communication gaps. And so whatever founders might imagine or vision for delivering the brand experience, it is very hard, and they have to iterate over it many times. versus in your case, you know exactly how technology operates and you know exactly what brand experience you want to deliver. So it's just like, so easy in that point.
No, it's true. And look, and there are some areas, right, as a retail brand that out of the box is fine, right? Or like the default market, solution is fine, whether that's, our WMS system, we're not going to differentiate on that, or whether it is our POS system, right? We're not necessarily going to differentiate on that. So there we take, what's amazing tools that are available off the shelf. But then there are other experiences that are truly brand accretive that do require us to be more creative with our technology approach, right? One example is our choice line of product, where we take remnant and dead stock material that at our factory in the Philippines, we just, in the early days, right, we walked through their campus and said, like, what's in this warehouse over there? And it's a gigantic building and it's full of remnant materials that they don't know. They're left over from bulk production runs. They don't know what to do with it. So on a regular basis, either gets purged, burned, goes into a landfill. And we said, oh, there's nothing wrong with these materials. It's high end. It's just small rolls of fabric, right? And there's got to be a better way to do something with them. And so we came up with this line, Del Dia and Choice line of product, where we empower the sewers. We, instead of prescribing this material goes there, this material goes there, right, in a tech pack, we basically give them the frame of what the patterns, right, and then they can choose based on the availability of the material that they have of this dead stock how to put the bag together. That's what results in super unique, colorful bags that Cotopaxi is known for. And at the same time, we clean up that, so the dead stock, right, in the supply chain, and it has amazing margin because it's trash essentially, right, that we're using. And so that's been really fun. But in order to showcase these products online, we had to build our own backend that basically allows us to individually photograph these items because they're unique, and then individually, make them available online, and then obviously have the pick and pack operation on the back end to have that unique identifier flow through, right? That didn't exist, that type of system, right? And so that's custom built internally, and it allowed us to launch other products. Like this week, we launched Grenovo, which is a jacket and a vest that's made from dead stock, our own dead stock Cotopaxi, fleece jackets that were end of life, right? That we turned into a very fashion forward like look and feel, and that's powered through the same sort of technology backend. So I think with some creativity, to your point, you can bring the two together. Technology can actually enhance and showcase, and really build cool brand experiences that way.
Yeah, this is really cool. Actually, I like it. It's almost like a serialized inventory.
That's correct. With a series of one, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like and so it's really complex process, and for particularly for the product of the price range that you have, it would be really expensive technology to deploy, because like you can do it for like $10,000 thing, $5,000 thing, or even like $1,000 phone. Even that not possible. But like so it's really expensive, but it's amazing actually, that you build this whole technology. So yeah, this is great. So like uh, so when you build this technology, have you actually have you got interest from other companies now? Engineered in you, does it get you into thinking like, should we start the whole tech company around this, bringing the solution to the other retailers or stuff? Have you had those kind of ideas?
Yeah, I think there's opportunity. At the same time, there's so much potential and growth left, right, with the brand itself. So it's, less but better. We try to focus and really build brand. Maybe that's down the road, right? There's an opportunity here, but for now, the focus is on Cotopaxi.
Yes, awesome. Yeah, this is good. Yeah, cool. So, like, because I come from the omni-channel retailing business and providing technology. So, tell me about your tech stack, or how you are envisioning the whole technology to work for delivering the buying experience to your customers, especially with the product, the kind of product you have, and the uniqueness it has.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we're somewhat lucky, right? We're a very young brand, right? We're 10 years old, so we were born in the era of like SaaS, right? And so we have zero on-premise legacy systems, right? That we, need to integrate and make work with newer technology. Everything was sort of from the get-go. Like the company only exists in the cloud, right? Like there's nothing that we sort of manage ourselves in terms of infrastructure. One of the reasons, right, why costs have come down so much, right? So in terms of our core stack, right, like our ERP, we sit on NetSuite. We power our D2C experience through Shopify, with Celigo middleware in between. Both ecom and retail runs on Shopify, which allows sharing of metadata and all of that with regard to product and inventory. And then on the fulfillment side, we use a tool called Jassy Clouds that powers our own fulfillment distribution center, all the inventory management. We do all our own fulfillment across the channels that we serve, wholesale, physical retail, our own replenishment, e-commerce, and corporate group sales, as well as international. And so that's sort of the core stack, right? Front end, transactions that happen, they flow through our ERP into our WMS. Inventory information syncs back into all these different systems, and then obviously there is a slew of marketing tools that sit on top to manage our presence in Meta and being in all these different environments. From a data perspective, we run on built a data lake on Azure, with a Power BI instance that sits on top where we ingest data from these different sources and pipe them, and then transform and level up these data sets for visualization. Um, so yeah, and then obviously on the periphery, various productivity tools and the Slacks and Google Meets of the world, that's sort of like coexist in the stack. But that's sort of the overall infrastructure. We've gone through phases, right? In the early days, we always were very careful not to bring on anything that would not integrate cleanly, right, through a REST API or existing connectors with some middleware. So that was from the get-go a filter, right, to say, hey, can we bring that tool into our existing stack and have the data flow cleanly? Um, at the same time, I think we went too far. We had too many systems, right? There was a plethora of different tools that were not as connected as they could be. So over the last 2-3 years, we've definitely push towards more consolidation, right? To bring it all closer together. I don't believe in like the one tool that rules it all, right? Like I don't know, I'm not going to name any names, right? But like the one provider that says we can do everything for you. I'm always a little careful when I hear that pitch. But I do think you can also go too far on the other end, right? To go too modular and to go too have too many little tools that only serve one very specific value purpose. And so I think it's, yeah, somewhere in the middle is where the magic happens.
Yeah, I know this somewhere in the middle is really hard to figure out, and it takes a lot of experience. And like you said, you go through a few different cycles. Sometimes you get too many of those tools come in, then you consolidate, but then then you feel some little bit of it tight. You need some more flexibility, so then you start expanding. But that's the nature of the whole technology, or in general of our life, right? So in our lives also, that's how it goes. And I like what you said that one, you were born in cloud environment, like when cloud got popular 10 years ago and all that. So especially now, because a lot of those cloud technologies available, especially Shopify and NetSuite, they are like a big ones. They like they have really productized really well those two key pieces of our business. And then the whole idea of API first approach. So, like you said, as long as whatever we are bringing in our ecosystem, tech ecosystem, if it provides good API set, then we know we have opportunity. We have opportunity to integrate, use it, be creative, and orchestrate new kind of workflows and make it efficient. Definitely, lucky that you didn't have any legacy, like, because just there are a lot of companies we talk to, and that's one of their biggest challenges. Like, we have all this software that are really hard to integrate with, and everybody's so much used to it that it's hard to even replace them. So that becomes actually a big challenge. Well, then you started in cloud era, and Cloudera, and then now we are coming up for a new big revolution, AI. So how are you thinking about it? Like, what do you think? Uh, let's say if you had all the resources available, what would you do with AI? Like, how would you introduce and how will you bring it in your business? What kind of value you think it might bring in?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question, right, that it has tremendous opportunity and potential for any organization, right, and that it holds true for our industry as well. At the same time, nobody knows, right, and even like the teams building these tools, they don't know, right, and I think that's what's so unique, right. In the past, you developed a piece of software, it was very clear these are the inputs, and then it's going to do something, right, algorithmically, and then these are the outputs. And this is really the first, and that could be like documented, and this is how this thing works, right? And that's obviously different with the large LLM, Gen AI tools. And so I think what that means for us is that we don't believe we fully embrace. We have and had an AI summit, and we do that on a quarterly basis now, where we send a very clear message to the organization. We're embracing AI as an org, right? Nobody is ever going to get penalized for using AI tools at Cotopaxi. Um, and and we need to figure this out ourselves, or else we will be beholden and dependent on service providers and consultants for the rest of our existence, right? So we need to build that capability in house. At the same time, I don't think that we can introduce AI prescriptively tops down. I think there needs to be a strong component of the respective teams telling us and experimenting with AI and telling us what the opportunities are. And then we can double down with, a project to implement, right? But I currently don't believe in picking a provider and saying, okay, we're going to go with X and that will be our AI stack. And that's what we're going to roll out through the organization, right? Because things are moving so quickly. It's very unclear what exactly the opportunities are. And so yeah, I think our take is experiment, 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 right? Embrace it, use it, and then tell us how you found it, valuable. And there are certain areas that we have introduced AI, customer experience and support, that's been really successful. I think it's the first time that the bots that we're deploying there, they actually work, right? They actually uplift and create a great experience, as opposed to in the past, right? When I realized that I was talking to I realized immediately that I wasn't talking to a human being, right? That's different now, right? And then, I immediately X'd out of it. And I think a lot of consumers were like that, right? Like, hey, get me to an agent. I don't want to deal with this stupidity. That's different, right? These tools today, they really do provide great and good experiences and answer, the questions that customers have. I think there's an opportunity on the marketing campaign side, although we're cautious there, right? In terms of, hey, creativity, right? Driven by AI. We're cautious there because I think there are some ethical question marks, right, in terms of appropriation of artwork. We do not want the Cotopaxi brand experience to be AI generated, right? There's an authenticity question here, right? That we as a brand want to continue to own, and so there is supporting creative processes, yes. Replacing creative processes, no. And then obviously there's a larger, going back to sustainability, which our team rightfully, right, raised the flag. Hey, how about energy consumption, right, of these like massive data centers? Like, what's our stance and our take on that, right? And so there's some just like genuine question mark, right, that the team has brought up, that we need to maneuver and find a stance on. And then obviously there's like individual productivity, right? Like how can we make, and there's ample studies at this point showing that, right? There's this pure exposure to these Gen AI capabilities and tools lifts the average productivity, right, of a knowledge worker by up to 40%. And so we believe in all that, right? We embrace all that. And we have not made a choice, right, with regard to like one specific provider, but we're letting the team experiment at this point.
Yeah. So, like, this is interesting. Definitely, we should. So, like, what I'm thinking about is like, when we encourage our team to use AI tool, generally, either they would go use ChatGPT, Gemini, or things like that, and have a conversation, which is really valuable. I use it day in day out. Like, these days I talk more with Gemini than anybody in my office itself. So that's definitely value there for sure. But then I'm thinking, like, where else actually we could be using for, like, in my case, I could use it for code reviews, for writing unit tests and all that stuff. But when it comes to retailing business, like, you have used technology to track your bags from production to getting it in the hands of the customer, and because it's every bag piece is a unique piece. Similarly, like, I think there are a lot of those really specific solutioning that could be done for the scenarios in retailing business. And so, because, like, once we come up with those very specific scenarios where our users can have their AI assistant, that would create productivity. Have you got any ideas around that yet, or are you still brainstorming, or, like, what are your ideas on it?
Yeah. No, I think you're right? I think there are some areas I mentioned customer support. That's not, per se outdoor specific, right? But like retail, for sure, there's opportunity there. Um, our engineering team is exactly as you said, right? Very proactively leveraging these tools for code review, for just learning, right? On new systems, just had one of our engineers go deep on AWS and how to just become smarter and is heavily using these tools as a coach essentially, right? And it's incredibly powerful for that, as well as code reviews, for like a new script that manages our invoicing process for international, right? Have one of the tools do a code review, right? And so it's really powerful for that. I think on the planning, inventory planning side, there's opportunity. Uh, Obviously, nobody has a crystal ball to match supply and demand perfectly, right? But these tools are good at recognizing patterns and like generating recommendations. And so I think there's for sure opportunity on that front, right? From enhancing the quality of our decision making with regard to our buy decisions, right? How much of what style, which colorways, right? Where do we make our place our big bets? I think there's for sure opportunity there. Um, and then I think on the creative side, again, there we're a little bit more cautious, right, with regard to um, how to what extent we introduce this technology in our creative processes. One though is, and we talked about choice, right? Like it is, as you said, cumbersome, right? Like we have the unit quantity of one, and yet we take an image of every single one of these packs, front and back, right? To showcase it on the website because the impact on conversion rate has been so tremendously positive, right? When we started to do that, right? To let the customer know what they're actually buying, right? In terms of these unique one for one packs. But it's cumbersome, right? So that's an area where we said, okay, could AI help us color up, right, some of these packs, right, or create some of the creative content for the flat product photography, no models involved, no large brand storytelling involved, but simply a stock photography approach. So I think these are the areas that we're considering and are looking at.
Yeah, and so definitely, I like your stand on, like, a creative thing where we don't want to just simply be dependent on AI for all the creative. Still, AI could be a good assistant for the person in the creative role, so they can get all these things done faster. But still, the creativity comes from the human, and that's exactly the right thing to do for sure. Also, like, on the supply chain side of it, two things, like, definitely keeping track of what our inventory levels are with the and the promises with the buyers, our seller suppliers. But then, with this whole omni channel where we have, like, a retail locations, then we have many warehouses, you also sell through marketplaces and all that. So, like, there are a lot of these different consumption points where you go sell, and at the same time we are stocking the same inventory at many different places. So just sheer idea of keeping track of available to promise, and then, keeping those patterns right, because, like, all these systems, even though they are all on the cloud, but there's this whole promise of eventual consistency is not real time consistency at all. So in that cases, you have to come up with all those safety stocks and buffers and all those ideas. So do you see how AI could be helpful, especially in your order management side of it, where you have like all these different inventory levels, get the order routed for fulfillment and all that?
Yeah, 100%. I include that in sort of the inventory and planning piece, right? Yes, replenishment, right? We have 20 retail locations at this point. Um, we currently have one distribution center, but at some point we'll likely open, that's here in Utah, we'll likely open, West Coast at some point, and East Coast. Um, and obviously then there's the international expansion. So yes, making sure that the right inventory is at the right spot, right, closest to customer, that we can deliver most cost efficiently. Splitting inventory is costly, right? It's at first glance the right thing to do, right, to serve a customer that sits in New Hampshire to shipping to them from Utah, much more expensive than shipping to them from New Jersey. At the same time, splitting that inventory can be incredibly costly, right? In terms of either having to fully duplicate in both locations, which, high capital working capital requirements, and or having a smart technology backend that does the order management, the routing based on the inventory availability, right? And so, yeah, I think there is tremendous opportunity on that front, Anil. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, that's what I've been thinking about, like how we could train our AI models on inventory information, and then have AI models help us uh, come up with the recommendation for inventory allocations and all that. Yeah.
Yep, 100%.
And then there's like a lot of challenges in the life of merchandisers, because like there's always like what goes on sale, where I put my dollar in the marketing, and then there are situations of overselling. How do I manage that, especially in the peak season? Like we are getting almost there. So like in November when we start selling huge, then definitely we end up overselling. How do I organize, get the inventory? So there's like a lot of those tooling ideas probably could come in, that could help our merchandisers to better do the job better and reduce their stress level.
Yep. I think one more area that we haven't touched on is on the sort of customer side, right? Like we just brought on a CDP Bloomreach to help create a more holistic picture of our customers across the different channels, right? Somebody walks into our retail store, attends one of our events, transacts with us online. And how do we ensure that we take advantage of all that information, right? All the data that we have across these different pools, bring them all together and create richer experiences, right? Real time as they're browsing Cotopaxi.com, right? Given their history and everything we know about that person, to create a better experience and showcase and merchandise in real time, more appropriately. So I think that's another area where a yeah, AI support is going to help us make better decisions and hopefully create richer customer experiences.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, and also like this other topic that I really wanted to touch with you, which is again a challenging one, is you started in the cloud when the cloud was getting popular. Like you said, you don't have almost nothing in on-prem. What is your take on build, and like a build versus buy is like a big debate. Um, so when there, especially like when you have somebody in tech person in the role at such a leadership position, it could go either way. Either a tech person could have a lot of fun, have building software, or like you guys, like all everything is cloud sourced, and all that. So just let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what is your take? Is building a bad idea, or what is the right balance? What's the middle ground?
Yeah. I mean, for me, the filter has always been: does this genuinely differentiate this tool, right? Or this, like, the problem that we're trying to solve through the deployment of technology, does it help to differentiate us, right? Or is it just getting sort of table stakes, um, best in class? And most of the time, the answer is we just need to be table stakes best in class, right? Meaning, there are good tools that do exactly that, right? And we will hence embrace them, right? Whether that's our ERP, our uh, e-commerce, cart, management, payments, etc. We're not going to differentiate on that, right? So I'm not going to build our own cart, and that's different for every organization, right? If you have a complex subscription model, or something that requires non-standard transactions to happen, that's different then, right? But for us, at the core, right? Like, we showcase our products online. Of course, there's rich storytelling, and there's sort of like at the upper skin, right? The top layer, there's some customization, right? That we have introduced to like the choice experience that we talked about. That was custom built because that truly differentiated us, right? And there wasn't an in-market solution. But for the most part, the vast majority of our stack is off the shelf, right? We just bought a solution that integrates well, that does allows us to operate as efficiently as we can, right? For technology essentially to get out of the way, right, and to facilitate process, and bad technology, right, can for sure impact customer experience, and create oversell scenarios if the data doesn't sync cleanly, and frustrating if like prices don't match up between online and in store and things like that, right? So technology needs to support and solve that, but typically the answer for us was out of the box is great, right? That's all we need. We need to then integrate it cleanly, and maybe adjust it slightly, but for the most part, there is no point in building our own. And that frees us up, right? Our team is small, right? We have a small technology team, 5 engineers or 4 engineers on the like front end, full stack side, and then 3 business systems, DevOps, engineers. So a relatively small team, um, but it allows them to focus on the things that are most value add, right? Where we then double down on truly building. And so yeah, I would say 90% buy, 10% build in our case.
No, that totally makes sense. I like the idea that something that clearly differentiates. Otherwise, like retailing is business model. Human has been doing it for 20,000 years now, and we have really mature technologies, especially like Shopify and NetSuite of the world. It's like so really well set. Everything is sorted out, so we don't need to build all those things. So yeah, in fact, I'm having so much fun talking to you about technology. I can keep going on and on and on, and you know, but I think we need to bring this to an end. Otherwise, our episode will be like somebody will say, "Well, is it like a what? 10 episodes are you going to release or something?" Well, so towards the end, I really want to ask this question to you, like in the retail business, what is the right tech stack we need for growth of retail business today? Tell us about that. Uh, because every now and then we come across companies that are really behind, and then we start complaining. So i i, I feel like I want you and to tell me, and it would be like a verdict for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we touched on a few of the components here already, right? With regard to, well, buy versus build, we just discussed, right? So for us, I think the right tech stack in the end is the one that supports an amazing customer experience. That's who we are, right? Like, we're a product brand, we're a rich story-driven brand. And so for us, it's not technology for technology's sake. It's technology to support these rich relationship driven interactions with our customers, right? Whether they attend one of our events in the early days, we hosted the Cotopaxi Questival. That was a way to build brand for us. It was a 24-hour outdoor scavenger hunt that exposed people to the values of the brand. And we built a mobile app for that allowed people to choose from a list of over 300 challenges, and interact and compete with other teams, and they would upload photos and the teams would comment on it, right? So it was an amazing brand building tool, right? So that was a great example. In that case, we went with build, right? Because we didn't have an out of the box solution. At this point, there are, and so we shifted from build to buy actually in that case. But the whole point was that we felt strongly that we cannot build this brand by only spending a ton of money on the Googles and the Metas of the world. We had to find a way to connect, for people to connect in person. That's also why we still believe in physical retail, right? And are building out a physical retail fleet cautiously. You can do a lot of damage to a brand if you expand too fast. Um, but we believe in those experiences because we're such a story driven, rich, human-centered brand, right? So human interactions matter. So for us, the right tech stack is one that supports those interactions, right? That gets out of the way when convenience and speed is most important in terms of somebody just needs to transact quickly, but that powers rich experiences when you have the customer's attention to learn more, right? About who we are and to, become part of the Cotopaxi tribe. And so I think that's the assessment from my perspective, right? Does technology support that, creating a tribe around the brand? Sometimes that means fast transactions, get out of the way. Sometimes that means rich storytelling and empower sort of those moments. And if the answer is yes, then that's the right tech stack. If it gets in the way of that, right, by introducing friction, then something's broken with it.
Awesome, really good. Thank you very much. In fact, I really got one important answer, even though I didn't even ask that question. It's like that whole customer engagement, customer experience. I talk to people, and this comes up a lot of times that we do a lot with the customer engagement and experience, but I never really get what exactly do you mean by it. But then today, in what you said is like that whole customer Cotopaxi tribe that I can really connect with. So it totally makes sense that it's not just about having a right kind of e-commerce site, but it's like all those community engagement activities. Those have to be really enabled so that people will engage. Otherwise, if you make it too hard, then nobody's going to do it. And gamification of it, it's very important. Like people should want to have fun with it, and all that can be enabled with technology, and that's where customer engagement, customer experience comes in. Cool, thank you very much for answering me very important question for me. Thank you.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Stephen, thank you very much for your time today. I really enjoyed, and definitely I'll come back and maybe I'll touch base with you again sometime talking about more about technology in retail. Thank you.
Please do, Anil. I really enjoyed the conversation. Love everything that you do. So thanks for having me.
Thanks. That's it for this episode of the Customer Centric Retailing Podcast. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast. Please rate and review and recommend to a friend or a fellow retail fanatic. This podcast is presented by Hotworks Commerce.